Set, go.
All right. Well, welcome to the Secret to Good Health class. With this class, I'm going to ask you to trust me. We're going to go somewhere with this. But what I want you to do initially is I want you to close your eyes and clear your heads. Let's all take a deep breath in and out. And I want you to imagine that you're in a medical doctor's office. You've had some tests done and you're waiting on the results. And you were told by the doctor that if you would like to have any loved ones with you to read the results, that you'd have them with you. So they're with you. The doctor comes into the office and says the tests were positive, it's what they feared, and that you're likely to have 6 months left to live. With 6 months left to live, who will you miss most? Who or what are you leaving behind? The doctor goes on to say that if you are to make some changes to your lifestyle to improve your health, that there's a good chance you'll have better days and more days. Would you make those changes? Is there anything you wouldn't do for more time? So we'll open our eyes. There was a study done with patients in this exact scenario. They were given a terminal diagnosis, and they were told by a doctor that if they were to make changes to their lifestyle, that there was a decent chance that they might have more days left than what their terminal diagnosis was. What they found in the study is that in being in the healthcare field, this is rare, but it was nearly 100% acceptance rate for the things that the doctor recommended that they do, that boy, they had the patient's attention, and whatever they recommended for almost the entirety of all the patients that are under this study, they did exactly what the doctor said to the T. The point of the study, though, the research that they did was that had these same patients lived their lives the way they did in the days that they had left, the vast majority of them would have avoided this terminal diagnosis that they're dying from. And it's tragic. And it's true of all of us that to some degree we follow the same example, but that patients and people in general have it in them always to make change. It just, for so many of us, it takes our backs to the wall with no options left to then all of a sudden snap into focus and make change. There was also a study done by hospice that if you're alive today, so if you're in this room, the majority of us in this room are going to be under hospice care at some point in our lives. And so the hypothetical conversation we just had is a very real conversation that the majority of us in this room are going to have with a practitioner. It's not a hypothetical. And so and I can almost end the class after saying this, but because it really is kind of the point in a lot of what I'm saying today, is that if you can accept that you're no different than the people in the study, which we're not, we all have it in us to make change and to make health our priority. It's really just a question of when. And so what I want for all of us is that when we have that real conversation with a doctor, that I know patients, and there are real patients in our office, that if they're to have that conversation with a doctor and they're telling them what to do to improve their health, a lot of them, they're going to say, I'm already doing a lot of these things. And there's maybe slight variations and changes that they can make. And then there's other patients that when they're told what to do, they have to do a complete 180 of what they're doing in their lives to try to improve their health. And that's an entirely different conversation with a practitioner. And that's a lot of what the patients in this study are facing. And so the secret to good health, this is where I wish I had like a magic bean that I could now give to all of you. But I don't. No, I really wish I did. But the truth is, and I think we're a little unique in this office in comparison to like medical doctors, and I think they would agree with this too, because I know a few of them, and a lot of what they do is firefighting. Like when there's an emergency or an issue, they're helping to put those issues out. Where we're a little different in this office is that the majority of the patients that are coming into this office, they're already healthy, like to some degree at least, and they're trying to improve upon the health that they already have. And so I think when we look at health, it's fundamentally different than a lot of what other doctors are looking at. And there's thousands of ways to like become healthier, but the one thing that every healthy person has in common is they're motivated to be healthy, and they keep that motivation consistently. They don't need a gun against their head. They don't need the back against their wall. They're able to somehow achieve the fact that they know what motivates them to be healthy, and they're able to keep it consistently at the forefront of what they're doing. And that's hard, and I'm not suggesting it's easy, but I'm also saying it doesn't take a terminal diagnosis to make it happen. I've seen it, and it doesn't take that. And so for what I want for all of us in this room is that we're able to prioritize our health consistently to the best of our ability without a terminal diagnosis or some emergency that forces us to do it. And I promise you it is possible, because I see it happen with our patients. And so what I want us to do next is on those sheets, we're only going to do these one at a time. I think is there four numbers on your sheet, right?
Yeah.
So the first one, in a moment, what I want you to write on is when we went through that hypothetical situation, the things that you were going to miss most, and more to the point, like if you were to be motivated to be healthy, why? Like what actually motivates you? Like what I find in going through this, because I've been doing this class now I think at least 10 years, but usually the things that you're going to miss most, or the things that you kind of envision in that scenario, those tend to have some parallels with the reasons we'd want to be healthy in the first place, or be motivated to be healthy. So if you were to be motivated to be healthy, and you will be at some point, what would be your motivation to do that? And I want you to write on that for a moment on that first, where we have the number 1 on that sheet, okay? if you're still writing, certainly continue to write. And all of this, what we're doing today is for you. And in saying that, is anyone comfortable sharing what they wrote, or kind of what would motivate them most?
I will. I'm
Sure.
motivated the most to be healthy for my husband, my children, and grandkids.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, if I'm,
thing.
did you really? Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes to
That's
yourself.
awesome.
Keep
Yeah,
That's great.
I want to be able to bend down and get my grandkids, you know, or
Yeah.
play and do things outside with them, instead of always feeling pain and hurting all the time. And
Yes.
I'm afraid to turn this way because this might happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
real.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do stuff when I retire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the good years.
I don't want to be retired in an old folks home watching TV all day.
Exactly.
I don't want that for you either, though. No.
I mean, I wouldn't mind, but
Mhm.
I'd rather do other things.
That would be your preference. Good.
Well, to kind of add on to that,
Yeah.
for me, it was more of being able to experience everything life has to offer me without being restricted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You bet. So, and for me, every time I organize this class, I think about my dad. So, the reason I do this talk actually, so the hypothetical scenario we went through was a very real conversation that my dad had with a cardiologist, and my mom couldn't make it, so I went with him. And he was told he would have probably 6 months to 2 years left to live, and we knew he was sick. We just didn't know there was a time frame on it. And there's something about hearing a time frame that, you know, and it just does. It does exactly what the study says it will do. Like it, and my dad, like he truly, and it's hard to be objective about your family, but he's the best guy I've known. Like he just was. He was that kind of guy. He was exactly the person in this study. Like meaning that, like family and work were his number 1 and 2 objectives. I don't know which one was ranked first, but he was great at both, so it didn't matter. Like, but health, I don't think it was anywhere on his radar. Until, you know, he really started having health issues, and then he was able to toe the line. Like he was a model patient, he really was. And it was too late, is the truth. Like from that terminal diagnosis, I think he died, I think it was 6 months to a year later. So they were absolutely right. And he always had it in him to, and I think they're right. I mean, he died when I was 18 years old. I think had he adopted the changes, and the truth is, like when they told him to do things differently and better, none of it was earth shattering. Like it was eating right and exercising. Like it's the things we know we need to do. He just wasn't doing them, and he didn't have the proper motivation until that point. But I think had he started sooner, I think logically he would have met Kathy, my wife, he would have met his grandkids. But because he waited so long, he wasn't able to do those things. And so for me, my takeaway and how, you know, personally how I try to apply that is, and I've been doing this class long enough too, that I've even been able to think about it enough that, like, my wife's pretty independent and capable. I'm just along for the ride. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and same with our kids. Like, they're 14 and 12. I mean, they need me, but they also, if I get struck by lightning today, they're gonna be okay. Like, so it's not about them. I just don't want to miss anything. Is the truth.
Yeah.
And I think for me that really is the big thing, is I want to be there for all the things and not feel limited. And I see, and you know, my dad did the best he could, but I definitely can learn from, I don't know if it's mistakes, but just change in priorities. That you can still be great at your family and your work and the things that are most important to you, and have health still be a priority for you. And so that for me is what I try to do the best I can. And in saying that, I'm not perfect. And like when I eventually have that conversation with the doctor, there's going to be things I can do better. But I do think I fall into the category where I'm also going to be able to say I already do a lot of these things fairly well. And I can do a little better. And truly that is a different conversation than the one my dad had, where he truly had to do a 180, and it was too late. And I don't want that for any of you in this room. And so I know this is, I'm a generally optimistic person, but this class is not so much that way up until this point. So I want us to get up all out of our chairs, and this is the first time I've done this in this office, so we're kind of have to figure out our lane points, but I want to pretend that this room is one big health spectrum, okay? So if you were your healthiest self, like you were doing everything by the book, you're doing everything you know you should be doing to achieve good health, you would be standing, as luck would have it, by Allison. So you'd be standing
I go over there.
you'd be standing right about here.
Let me.
So let's say you're the opposite, like you live at McDonald's, you're doing everything wrong, you have nothing healthy that you're doing routinely. You'd be standing, let's say, by the sink kind of on this end. So, and no judgment, because I promise you none of us are going to be like out that door. If you had to rate where you are right now, stand there and just kind of, and again, there's no judgment here, none of us are perfect.
Yeah, that might be a little more there.
Okay. So this we all have room for improvement. This is encouraging. Now I'm going to read a study. So a separate study was done of 23,000 patients, and they were given, they could only choose one area of their health to improve upon, and the three areas were, and they could only choose one, was exercising 3.5 hours a week, which equates to 30 minutes a day. Eating healthier than they did before, but they could quantify it and prove that they were eating healthier than they did before the study started, or stopping smoking. But they couldn't do a combination of 2 or 3, they could only do one thing. By focusing on one thing over time, what they found is patients outside this study group, as opposed to ones in the study group, the ones that made one change they saw a 93% reduction in diabetes, an 81% reduction in heart attacks, a 50% reduction in strokes, and a 38% reduction in cancer from making one change.
That's huge.
It's huge. It really is. It's big. And from one change, not like a complete lifestyle overhaul, just doing one thing and sticking with it and doing it well. So with that in mind, a year from now, let's say you were able to make one change and be consistent with it, where do you think you'd be standing a year from now?
I'd be standing over there.
Well, yeah, and we'll move there.
Yes.
So what I love about the study, again, I feel like, especially this time of year, like with New Year's resolutions and all that jazz, most people, and not all, but most of them, they set their sights so high and on an unachievable goal that they're not able to realize, and that's the running joke. Like, now I even ask anyone if they have a New Year's resolution, because it's usually going to end in disappointment. But what this study proves is that if you can find one thing and stick with it and be consistent, again, I'm just going to reiterate the numbers, but 93% reduction in diabetes, 81% reduction in heart attacks, 50% reduction in strokes, 38% reduction in cancer. And those are the biggies. Like, when you really look at the illnesses that cause impacts on your life, those are the ones. And by making one change, you can make a huge difference. And I want us to keep that in mind as we go through. That was
Sorry.
sounded like an Amber Alert or something. Okay.
No, it's just.
My health is lost and cannot be found.
But the other thing I would say too, and this is true of all of us, but we see it with our patients too, that patients that do focus on one thing, we're never going to ask you to focus on more than one, because if you can find one area to really improve upon, that's realistic, that's human nature, we can achieve that. It's the multiple things taking on too much that probably is not going to be a routine, and what your bodies need are routine. And so whether it's exercise, eating healthy, any of those things, I would rather that you eat one piece of lettuce for a year than eat one salad and be done.
Right.
Like, it's creating the routine of eating healthy that really matters. And whether it's exercise, same principle, that if you can find a way to exercise for 10 minutes a day, but make that a routine that you stick with, and then you can add on to it from there, your body needs that more than it does than you running for an hour one day. So, excellent. So I'd like us all, we can go back to our seats. And the part in this class I find, I feel obligated to at least touch on chiropractic as we talk about overall lifestyle change and improvements to our health. But I want to take a different approach to it. So I find, because we're part of it's a group of chiropractors that meet up, and we're like-minded and all really great people that are just love helping patients. But what I find in a group of chiropractors is that they often will get caught up in defending chiropractic and saying, you know, why it works and why it's effective and believing in chiropractic, that kind of jazz. We're going to try the opposite approach today. So raise your hand if you believe that you have a spine. We're off to a good start. Good. All right. And do you understand, even if you don't understand, but I think you'll believe me because it's true, is that the reason we have a spine is to protect our nervous system. And our nervous system is a pretty big deal. It's really what controls and regulates everything in our body. Can we agree that the nervous system, the spine protects the nervous system, which is a big deal? Raise your hand if you agree with that. Again, we're doing great. So now, if a bone is out of place putting pressure on a nerve, if you think that's a bad thing that you don't want, raise your hand. Excellent. And if we were to remove that bone from the nerve and allow the nervous system to work as it was intended to work, raise your hand if you think that's a good thing. Raise your hand. That is all chiropractic is. And it really, in fact, it is one of the easiest forms of healthcare to explain, and that we just explained chiropractic here. That's what it is. As opposed to other medical disciplines that if you were to try to explain how an antibiotic is effective and the pros and cons and how it works in your body, good luck. That's going to be a much more complicated process. What we do is we take bones off nerves so that your nervous system works better than when you walked in the building. Always that is the intent with the patient. We're able to achieve that. And so my point in saying all this is, how can chiropractic not work? I mean, it's one of the logical forms of healthcare that I can explain to a 5-year-old and I think they can understand it. Or again, good luck with antibiotics. I think that might be more difficult. So, and I would also say too that as opposed to other ways for you to care for yourself, because we're going to talk about diet and exercise, and those things are important. So I'm going to take us back to, I went to a seminar with this group of chiropractors, and the guy ahead of me were in a line for a buffet, and there was pasta in the buffet line, and he was continuing to heap pasta onto his plate to where, like, it truly was like a mountain of pasta. And he caught me finally looking at him making this mountain of pasta, and he said, "Don't worry, it's okay. I know next month there's going to be a study saying that pasta is somehow good for you." And
He would love that.
Exactly, I would too, actually. But his point is funny, but it's also kind of true that there's 1,000 different ways of looking at nutrition and diet and things that are good for you. And eggs is just a classic example of that you can find studies saying they're awful, some that they're healthy, and next month it's going to change. I challenge you to find any study that will say that a bone on a nerve is somehow helpful to you. There isn't any. It's not. And taking a bone off a nerve is always going to be healthy for you. That's never going to change. And so regardless of what your health goals are, don't let your nervous system be a reason that your health is failing you. And we can help you do that. Any chiropractor can. Okay, enough about chiropractic. So what we're going to do next, and to tie this kind of back into our day-to-day lives, again, truly when my dad had the conversation with the cardiologist and he recommended lifestyle changes that my dad adopted, none of them were newsworthy or things that he didn't already know that he needed to improve on. If you were to have a similar conversation with a doctor, in a moment, what I want you to write down is what you believe they would say to you, and that the areas that you know you already should be improving upon that they would point out. And we're not gonna write a novel here and make this get too negative, but even just a top 3. Like if they were to really isolate, here are the things that you need to do differently or better, what do you believe they might say? And I want you to write that in the next section.
I was thinking in my head, no fried chicken.
Yeah, probably would come up. Mm-hmm. if you're still writing, certainly feel free to continue writing. But in the last section, we're not going to write on this first, but I'm going to kind of explain more what I have in mind, and it's really what we've been talking about, that what your body needs if you're to make meaningful change in relation to your health. What your body needs is the repetition of whatever activity that it is that you're considering. And so with that in mind, if you're motivated, and my hope with this class is that you leave here, if your motivation was here walking in, maybe it's here now. Like, I'm hoping it's higher. But that's the time that you can kind of capitalize on your motivation, because the thing with motivation is, well, and I'll say this too, that one of the first times I did this class, and I'm gonna tell you this too, that as long as you can keep your motivation high, you will absolutely be successful. Most people, it tends to do this, but we don't have to accept that and say that's me. What he very literally did is he kept that sheet that you're writing on, he keeps it on his breakfast table, and he looks at it every morning. And like when I said keep your motivation kind of front and center, he was very literal. He literally keeps it on his table. If that works for you, that's great. But most of us, what happens is that, some days are going to be good, some days are going to be bad when it comes to motivation. If it's higher now, if you're open to this, and this is up to you, but what I would encourage you to write on next when you're ready is a change that you would like to make tomorrow, that you would like to make repeatable. But the point of doing this is to create a sustainable change or repetition that you can sustain, that you know you can't fail at. And so we've already talked about some examples of, and I said it's kind of silly, but like eating a piece of lettuce, like that, in the whole mountain of things that you're going to eat throughout the day, that's not going to move a whole lot. But if you can do it consistently and then also add on to it over time, that's the purpose of this change, is to try to create something that you can make sustainable, that you know you can't fail at. If it's exercise, and I mean this sincerely, if you're trying to make improvements to exercise, start crazy small. And your only goal is not the exercise itself, but to actually create the repetition of that behavior that's sustainable. That's what your body needs. It doesn't need the exercise, it needs the repetition and the consistency of that behavior. And so with that in mind, if you'd like to make a change starting tomorrow, I'd like you to write something down, but it's something that you know you can't fail at, that you believe is realistically achievable, that you can stick with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like I cut down on alcohol, but
Yeah.
I can't realistically put that, because that's going to be a harder thing for me to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
It is so hard. Like, that's all people around here.
I know.
I do
Yeah.
great during the week, and then the weekend comes, and I'm like, oh, okay.
See, I'm the opposite. I have such a stressful job, but when I get home, I want to have some wine. But on the weekends, I don't even care,
Chill.
because I don't have that craziness. And I know that's not what you do when you're stressed, right?
Yeah.
I know that, but yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah, and all these things, I mean, changing habits is hard, and that's,
Oh, yeah.
it just is. If it was easy, everyone would do it, and it'd be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we find New Year's resolutions comical. It's like, it's just so hard to make change.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, your body needs that type of repetition, whether it be a good or a bad habit. Your body still builds and gets used to that. So trying to untrain it and then retrain better habits.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Well, and that's an interesting point to think about too, how you can train your brain to do positive things, but you can train it to be in a bad position, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I saw a quote the other day, and I had gotten home and I was like, I need to get on my elliptical, but I'm gonna sit in my bed for a little while. And I was scrolling on YouTube, and something popped up that was like, when you make a plan to do something and avoid doing it, you're like establishing a negative thought pattern in your brain that causes you later on to be a self-sabotaging individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm gonna go get on the elliptical now.
That is good motivation.
Yeah, I was like, dang, they got me. The internet knows way too much about me.
That's true.
So it was just funny. But
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's the truth. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I think, if you're committing to the one thing that you can stick with, that's wonderful. And if you can keep your motivation higher consistently, you will absolutely be successful. And I think what this class proves is that a lot of us don't, without urging from other people, we don't prioritize our health soon enough, that it usually takes someone to nudge us along the way. And I think in addition to adjusting spines, which is something I think we do well in our office, the other part is that, like that, and I say this often to patients, but like you'll spend 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes in our office, but you're spending all your other minutes outside this office. That part of our responsibility, if we want patients to be healthier, is to lovingly nudge them towards making better choices to the best of their ability. And that's really, I think, what I think we as an office are good at. Allison is extremely passionate about the subject. I think with or without us, actually. Like, I think she already had this in her, and it just, we give her a channel in which to funnel that energy, but she's great at it. Dr. Brandon is a wonderful doctor. Dr. Kathy is great too. They both are just passionate about patient care in general, and they want what's best for patients. And I'm okay, but
You're awesome.
Yeah.
but I think all of us and people we know, I think just family often can do that, but it's also nice having people that aren't family that have less of that connection, that can lovingly nudge people we care about in that direction. And so, and I bring this all up too because I think we do it two or three times a year. We have Patient Appreciation Week, where the intent behind it is that the patients that we love working with most, that we feel like are getting great results in their care, they tend to know people like them. And so, and ultimately, maybe it is a selfish thing. We want more people like the people we love and care about most in our office care that we care for. And so, I think we have the board here, but the week of February 9th through 12th, any new patient that our patients refer into the office, we take on the cost of their new patient appointment for them. So it's, and the reason we do this is I find, and actually I'm guilty of this too, that if there's something I'm considering doing, if it's a deal or there's no cost, I'm more likely to do it. And so that's the reason we do it. And so anyone that you would refer in that week, it wouldn't cost them anything for their new patient visit. It'd normally be $199, but we waive that cost for anybody that you would like to refer that week. And so we'll be around after class if there's anybody that you think could use more loving nudges and people in their corner. I think that's what we're really good at, and we'd be glad to help them. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, again, stick around.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.